My companion, Lumen, lives just beneath my skin. It's not as strange as it sounds, really. Lumen is a symbiote, a small, gentle being from a world far away. It doesn't have a body of its own, not in the way we think of one. Instead, it chose me as its host, its home. We share this life together now. It feels like a constant, quiet warmth, a hum of energy just at the edge of my thoughts. Lumen's species is ancient and wise, and their gift to us was the bridge between our worlds. They gave us creatures like Lumen, who could help us speak to the Veridian. It's a partnership built on trust and a shared desire to connect with others across the vast emptiness of space. Lumen's job is simple, yet utterly profound. It is a translator. When I think of something I want to say, Lumen catches the thought. It doesn't hear words, but the pure intention behind them. Then, it transforms that intention into a complex pattern of light. These lights flicker and dance across my skin, mostly on my hands and forearms. It's a beautiful sight, like having constellations living on my arms. The lights are my voice now, a silent language made visible. It's a strange feeling to communicate without making a sound, to watch my thoughts ripple outwards as shimmering colors. It's a language that requires no sound, only sight and an open mind. The process also works in reverse, which is the truly magical part. When a Veridian communicates, they create their own patterns of light. Lumen perceives these flashes, these intricate dances of color and rhythm. It takes in the entire sequence, deciphers its meaning, and translates it directly back into a thought inside my mind. It's not a voice I hear, but a pure concept, a feeling, an idea that blossoms fully formed. It's the most direct form of communication I have ever known. There is no filter, no accent, no tone of voice to misinterpret. There is only the raw message, delivered from one mind to another through the beautiful medium of light. Preparing for my first meeting with a Veridian was an exercise in calm. I sat for hours in the quiet observation deck, simply thinking and letting Lumen practice. I thought about my home, the color of the sky, the taste of rain. With each thought, my arms would glow with soft blues, gentle greens, and warm yellows. I watched the patterns, trying to understand the new rhythm of my own expression. It was like learning to dance with a new part of myself. I felt a sense of peace settle over me. We were ready. We were going to bridge the gap between our species, one flash of light at a time. It felt like standing on the shore of a new ocean, ready to finally meet those who lived within its depths. The Veridian entered the room with a grace that was mesmerizing. It was tall and slender, with long limbs that moved like reeds in a gentle current. Its skin was the color of a deep forest at twilight, and it had no face as I would recognize one. Instead, the smooth surface of its head pulsed with a soft internal light. It was called Xylar. I felt a wave of nervousness, but Lumen sent a calming pulse through me, a silent reassurance. I took a steadying breath. This was it. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for, a true conversation with a completely different form of intelligent life. All our hopes rested on this quiet, peaceful exchange. I offered the first greeting. I focused on the idea of welcome, of peace, of friendly curiosity. My hands and arms immediately lit up with a cascade of soft, golden light that pulsed outwards in a slow, welcoming rhythm. The light reflected in the polished floor, making it seem as if I were standing in a pool of sunshine. Xylar stood perfectly still, its entire being focused on the light I was producing. I could feel its attention, a palpable sense of concentration. It was taking in my message, my silent greeting. The room was utterly quiet, the only movement being the gentle, hopeful glow emanating from my skin, a message sent across the silent void between us. After a moment, Xylar responded. The smooth surface of its head began to shimmer. A complex pattern of deep violet and silver lights flashed in a rapid, intricate sequence. The lights were sharp and precise, like tiny stars being born and dying in an instant. I watched, fascinated, as the silent message was sent. Just as quickly, Lumen did its work. A clear thought appeared in my mind, as if it had always been there. Greeting. Your light is warm. I perceive your peaceful intent. The translation was perfect, instantaneous. A wave of relief washed over me. It was working. We were communicating. We were actually talking to each other. The initial exchange felt like a victory. We continued for a while, sharing simple concepts. I shared the idea of my homeworld, thinking of vast blue oceans and green forests. My arms glowed with vibrant blues and greens. Xylar, in turn, shared a concept of its home. A flash of brilliant crystalline light filled my mind with the idea of a world of immense interconnected caves, glowing with natural bioluminescence. It was a place of deep quiet and shared community. We were building a bridge, concept by concept, flash by flash. It felt like the beginning of a true friendship, a connection that went beyond species, beyond worlds. Feeling more confident, I decided to share something more complex. I wanted to convey the human concept of a joke. It seemed like a good way to show our species' capacity for humor and playfulness. I thought of a simple, silly story I knew from childhood, one about an animal doing something unexpected. I focused on the feeling of surprise, the lightheartedness, the punchline that leads to laughter. My arms flickered with a fast, chaotic pattern of bright, mismatched colors. Yellow, pink, and orange, all sparking at once. I tried to make the light pattern feel as fun and unpredictable as the joke itself. It was a gamble, but I hoped it would be understood. Xylar stood motionless for a long time after my transmission. The soft light on its head dimmed slightly, and its posture seemed to shift, though I couldn't be sure how. Finally, it sent a response. The lights were a deep, slow-pulsing maroon, a color I hadn't seen before. The thought that formed in my mind was stark and confusing. The data is illogical. The pattern indicates distress and chaos. Are you in danger? Is your mind malfunctioning? I was stunned. My attempt at humor, at sharing a moment of lighthearted fun, had been interpreted as a sign of mental breakdown or a cry for help. The warmth of our earlier connection was suddenly replaced by a cold, awkward silence. I quickly tried to correct the misunderstanding. I focused on the idea of no danger, of play, of false information for amusement. My arms produced a soft, steady green light, trying to convey calmness and safety, but the damage was done. Xylar's next message was cautious, tinged with a new sense of uncertainty. Your patterns are contradictory. You project chaos, then you project calm. It is difficult to establish a baseline for your state of being. It was then I realized the problem. Lumen could translate the thought, but it couldn't translate the cultural context that gave the thought its meaning. A joke isn't just words or ideas. It's a shared understanding of what is normal, and what is a funny deviation from that norm. The conversation stalled. We returned to simpler topics like the temperature of the room and the composition of the air, but the easy flow was gone. A barrier had gone up between us, not of language but of experience. My attempt to share a piece of human culture had failed, because Xylar had no frame of reference for it. To its logical mind, presenting false information, even for fun, was a sign of a system error. It was a sobering moment. I understood that perfect translation was not the same as perfect understanding. There were entire worlds of meaning, of culture and history, that could not be sent through flashes of light. We stood in silence for a while, the gap between us feeling wider than ever. The flawless Translator Symbiote had shown us its limit. It could bridge the space between our minds, but not the gulf between our histories. I felt a pang of disappointment. Maybe this was an impossible task. How could we ever truly know one another if our fundamental ways of seeing the world were so different? My idea of fun was Xylar's idea of a system malfunction. What other simple truths about myself would be completely alien to my new acquaintance? It seemed our shared biology was the least of our differences. Then I had an idea. It was simple, perhaps even foolish, but it felt right. I closed my eyes and stopped trying to say anything. Instead, I focused on a pure feeling, one that needed no context or explanation. I thought about the feeling of watching a sunrise. I recalled the quiet hope, the gentle warmth on my skin, the slow, beautiful arrival of the light. I didn't add any story or personal memory. I just focused on that raw, universal sensation of peace and beauty. My arms began to glow with a soft, slow gradient of deep orange, rising to a brilliant, warm gold. It was a simple, honest pattern. Xylar remained still, but after a moment, the light on its head began to shift. It pulsed with a soft, silvery blue light, gentle and slow, mirroring the rhythm of my own golden glow. Then the translated thought came, and it was different from before. It wasn't a question or a statement of fact. It was a shared feeling. The warmth is perceived. The pattern is harmonious. It brings a sense of stillness. The word wasn't quite right, but the feeling behind it was. It was a feeling of shared peace, a moment of mutual appreciation for something beautiful, even if we called it by different names. In that moment, I understood. Real communication wasn't just about exchanging data flawlessly. It was about patience, It was about finding the small, simple things we could share without needing a library of cultural context. It was about showing, not just telling. Xylar then did something new. It extended one of its long, slender limbs and gently touched my glowing forearm with the tip of its finger. A new thought entered my mind, this time from both Xylar and Lumen. We will learn, together. Hope, bright and brilliant, flashed between us, a silent promise that with time and kindness, our lights would one day tell the same stories.